Welcome back, everyone. Tonight I have something a little different for you. If you've ever worked the night shift, you already know silence can be the loudest sound in the world. These are 3 true security guard horror stories, told from people who have seen what most of us never want to see. So grab your headphones, dim the lights, and let's begin. Story 1. The night shift at Ridgeway Mall. I used to work as a night security guard at a shopping mall called Ridgeway Center, just outside a small town in Ohio. It was not a big place. 2 floors, a few dozen stores, a food court, and a movie theater on the far end. At night, when the shutters came down and the lights dimmed, the entire place had this strange quietness, the kind that makes you constantly check over your shoulder. My shift was from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It was a solo shift, which meant I had the entire mall to myself after the cleaning crew left around midnight. My job was to walk the halls, check each door, keep an eye on the security cameras, and make sure no one broke in or stayed behind after hours. Easy money, or at least that is what I thought at first. The first few nights were peaceful. I would walk the corridors, hear the faint hum of the air conditioning, and sometimes listen to the sound of vending machines clunking softly. But one night in early December, something felt different. It was colder than usual. The heating system was on, but every time I walked past the north hallway, near the old toy store that had shut down months ago, I would feel this sharp drop in temperature, like walking into a freezer. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe a broken vent. But that part of the mall always gave me chills. Even before that night, around 2:15 a.m., I was doing my regular patrol when I noticed something odd on the camera monitors in the security room. The camera covering the toy store, the one with the locked gate, showed movement. It was subtle, like a shadow shifting. I leaned closer to the screen. For a moment I thought it was just static, but then I saw it clearly. A small flicker of light, like the reflection of an eye, or maybe something metallic catching the camera. Then, movement again. Something darted behind one of the shelves. I grabbed my flashlight and radio, muttering to myself, probably just a rat or one of the workers forgot to lock up properly. Still, I could not shake off that creeping tension crawling up my neck. The walk to the toy store took less than 2 minutes, but it felt like forever. Every footstep echoed. My flashlight beam bounced off glossy tile and glass display cases. When I reached the toy store, I saw the metal shutter, still padlocked shut. No sign of anyone forcing their way in. I crouched down, trying to peek through the small openings in the gate. It was pitch dark inside, and then I heard it. A soft tapping sound from inside the store. Tap, 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 like someone gently knocking on glass. I froze. It was coming from the back of the store near the display counter. Hello? I called out, instantly regretting it. No answer. Just silence. Then another tap, faster this time. Tap, 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 tap. I raised my flashlight, shining it through the metal slats, trying to catch any reflection. And for a split second, I saw something move. A shape. Small, hunched, and fast, darting across the floor between 2 aisles. I stumbled back, nearly dropping my light. My heart was racing. But I had to check. The mall had cameras. If there was someone inside, I would see it. So I went back to the security room, trying to convince myself it was a raccoon or maybe a homeless person sneaking in for shelter. When I checked the feed again, my stomach turned. There was a figure standing in the middle of the toy store. It looked like a child, maybe 8 or 9 years old. Still as a statue, facing directly toward the camera, I watched for nearly 30 seconds. It never moved, never blinked. Then, the screen flickered, and the figure was gone. I replayed the footage again and again, but the recording glitched each time it reached that moment. It would freeze on the frame where the figure appeared, then skip ahead like someone had cut out a few seconds. That was when I called my supervisor, Dave. He laughed it off, told me not to psych myself out, and said maybe the cleaning crew forgot a mannequin. But I had been there when the store closed months ago. There were no mannequins. After hanging up, I tried to calm myself with coffee and music, but my nerves were shot. Every creak from the ceiling or hum from the vending machine made me jump. Around 4 a.m., I went for another patrol, more out of paranoia than duty. The toy store hallway was dark except for the red exit light at the end. As I walked past it, I heard something roll across the floor behind me. I turned around. My flashlight revealed a small blue rubber ball gently rolling toward me. It stopped at my boot. I did not move. I did not breathe. There was no one else there. The store's gate was still locked. The ball had to have come from inside. That was it for me. I radioed Dave again, told him something weird was happening. He said he would swing by, but he lived 20 minutes away. So I waited by the security room, eyes glued to the monitors. At 4:27 a.m., the toy store camera glitched again. This time I saw a movement in the hallway, right outside the store. A figure was standing under the exit light. It was short, pale, and still. The angle of the camera made it hard to see its face, but it looked wrong. The proportions, the way it stood, stiff, like a doll propped upright. And then it began to walk toward the camera. Slowly, deliberately, I backed away from the monitors, whispering, "No, no, no." The hallway feed crackled, and for a split second, the camera flicked to static. When the image came back, the figure was gone. Dave arrived at around 5 a.m. We walked the mall together, checking every hallway. Nothing. No sign of forced entry, no broken locks, no tracks. Nothing but that blue ball lying in the middle of the floor. He picked it up, looked at me, and said, "You sure you're not just tired, man?" I did not answer, but the moment he turned around, I saw it. A smudge on the glass of the toy store gate, a small, greasy handprint, child-sized. I quit the following week. Dave told me the footage from that night was corrupted, that none of the cameras saved any clear images. Months later, I heard that Ridgeway Mall shut down permanently due to electrical issues. But sometimes when I drive past the boarded-up building, I swear I still see a faint blue ball resting near the north entrance. And that's when I realized he was still standing there. Story 2. The warehouse that never slept. I worked security at a large distribution warehouse on the outskirts of Dallas, Texas. It was the kind of job most people would call boring. 8 hours of walking the same routes, checking loading docks and watching camera feeds. But boredom, I learned, is better than silence, because silence can hold things you do not want to hear. The place was massive, over 300,000 square feet of cold concrete and stacked steel shelves that reached the ceiling. When the day crew left at 9 p.m., it became a different world. The hum of forklifts and chatter of workers vanished, leaving only the faint echo of buzzing lights and the low moan of air vents. I had been there for almost a year before the night everything changed. It was a Thursday in late March. The night started normally. I clocked in at 10, grabbed my flashlight, and began my first patrol around the loading bays. Each door had to be checked, logged, and marked with timestamps on a handheld scanner. Around midnight, I was in Section D, the farthest part of the building, near the old refrigeration unit that had been shut down years ago. That area always gave me a strange feeling. Not fear exactly, but an unease, like the air was heavier somehow. As I passed one of the bays, I heard a clang. It was distant, like a metal pipe being dropped. I paused, listening. Nothing. I radioed the other guard, Terry, who was stationed at the front office. "Hey, did you hear that noise from the back?" His reply came through static. "Negative. You alone back there?" "Yeah," I said. "Just checking it out." He laughed. "Well, if you see a ghost, tell it to sign in." I walked toward the source of the sound, deeper into the old refrigeration area. The overhead lights here flickered more often, and the air was noticeably colder. Most of the units were empty, but some still had covered equipment and old pallets stacked against the walls. Then I saw something strange. One of the bay doors, Bay 14, was slightly open, just enough for a person to slip through. That was impossible. Every door was supposed to be locked from the inside during the night shift, and I had checked that one less than an hour ago. I crouched down, shining my light into the gap. The beam cut through a thin mist of cold air that leaked out like fog. It smelled faintly metallic, like wet steel. "Warehouse security," I called out. "If anyone's in there, identify yourself." No answer. I gripped the metal handle and pulled the door open just enough to step inside. The cold hit me instantly. It was like walking into a freezer. The room was pitch black except for my flashlight beam, which cut through the white haze of my own breath. Rows of empty shelving stretched ahead. The air was thick, quiet, and wrong, and then I heard it and footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from somewhere deeper inside. "Hello?" I said again, my voice trembling. "Warehouse security, what's your trespassing?" The footsteps stopped. Then after a pause came a faint metallic sound, like something dragging along the floor. I took a step back, shining my light around, but there was nothing. only the pale fog and my own echo bouncing off the walls. I decided to retreat and call it in. As I turned toward the door, I noticed something I had missed earlier. There were footprints on the concrete, bare footprints, small ones, leading deeper into the cold room. I followed them with my light, careful not to make noise. They disappeared around a corner near the back. When I turned, I saw something I still cannot explain. A figure, standing at the far end of the aisle. Too far for my light to reach clearly. It looked like a man at first, tall and thin but unmoving. "Sir," I shouted.
"You need to come out now."
The figure did not react. I took one cautious step forward, then another. As the beam of my flashlight finally touched it, my breath caught. It was a mannequin, one of those full-body plastic forms used for uniform displays. But it was wearing a reflective vest, the same kind all employees wore, and a faded ID badge clipped to its chest. Only one problem. There were no mannequins in this part of the building. The ID badge read, "Miguel Ortiz, Night Security." My hands went cold.
I knew that name. Miguel was a guard who used to work here before me.
He had gone missing 2 years earlier. They said he quit without notice and just disappeared. My flashlight flickered. Then, from somewhere behind the shelves, I heard that same dragging sound again, but now it was closer. I turned toward it, light shaking, and caught a glimpse of movement between the aisles. Someone was there, crouching low, moving fast. I shouted again. "Stop right there!" No response, just the echo of my own voice. Then silence, the kind of silence that presses against your ears until it almost hurts. My radio crackled. It was Terry again. "Hey man, you okay? You're not answering the logs." "I think someone's inside the old freezer area," I whispered. Static then. "What? That section's sealed, isn't it?" "It was," I said. "Bay 14 was open. I'm looking..." And that was when I heard it clearly. A low breathing sound coming from just a few feet behind me. Slow, wet, uneven. I spun around, light flashing across the room. Nothing. But the air behind me was moving like someone had just exhaled. I bolted for the door, slamming it shut behind me and locking it with the emergency latch. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. When I got back to the office, Terry looked pale. He said, "You're not going to believe this." He pointed to one of the monitors. It was the camera feed from the refrigeration corridor, the one I had just come from, and on the screen, someone was standing in front of Bay 14. The image was grainy, but the figure looked just like Miguel. Same height, same uniform, same reflective vest. He was facing the camera, still, unblinking. Then the screen went black. We called the police. They searched the entire warehouse that night. Every bay, every storage room, every corner. They found the door to Bay 14 locked, just as I had left it. No sign of forced entry, no footprints, no fingerprints. But here's the strange part. When they checked the personnel records, they confirmed that Miguel Ortiz's locker was still in the break room. And inside it, covered in dust, was his ID badge, the same one I had seen hanging on the mannequin. The officer who opened the locker looked confused. "How'd you know this was in here?" he asked. I told him I didn't. Not really, I quit a week later. Terry too. Neither of us wanted to work there anymore, especially after management brushed the whole thing off as faulty equipment. Months passed, but sometimes late at night I still dream of that cold room and the sound of breathing just behind me. A few weeks ago I got a text from a guy who replaced me at the warehouse. He said one of the cameras caught something strange by Bay 14. He attached a screenshot. In the image you could see the bay door halfway open, and standing just beyond it, barely visible through the fog, was a tall, thin figure wearing a reflective vest, and on its chest, an empty space where an ID badge should have been. And that's when I realized the warehouse never really slept. Story 3. The Hospital on County Road. I worked as an overnight security guard at an abandoned hospital in rural Kentucky. It was called St. Augustine Medical, a small facility that had been closed for nearly a decade after a series of financial problems and safety issues. When I got hired, the property was being used temporarily by a construction company for storage. Stacks of drywall, paint cans, and old equipment filled the hallways. They wanted someone to watch the place overnight, mostly to keep kids and vandals out. It sounded easy enough. One man, one radio. 8 hours of silence, but I learned quickly. Silence can play tricks on you, and sometimes silence is not empty. My shift started at 9 p.m. and ended at 5 in the morning. The first few nights were dull. I would patrol the main floor, check the emergency exits, and sit in the old nurses' station where they had set up a few working security cameras. The power was limited, only a few lights worked. Most of the hallways were pitch black except for whatever light my flashlight could reach. Every sound in that place echoed forever. My own footsteps, the hum of the generator, the distant creak of pipes expanding in the cold. But on my fourth night, I began noticing things that did not make sense. It started small. While walking past the pediatric wing, I heard faint music. It was the soft tinkling sound of a lullaby, like one of those old music boxes winding down. I stopped. The sound faded. I checked every room, all empty. Dust-covered floors, broken furniture, nothing but silence again. When I returned to the nurses' station, I asked the maintenance guy about it the next morning. He said there used to be a children's ward on that floor, and that they sometimes found old toys left behind. He shrugged it off, but the way he said it made me uneasy, like he knew something but did not want to say. A week later, I started hearing footsteps. They would echo faintly down the long hallways, slow measured steps like someone pacing. At first, I thought it was just the sound of old pipes or the wind pushing through cracks. But one night around 2:30 a.m., the steps stopped just outside the nurses' station door. I froze, staring at the door handle. It rattled once, gently, as if someone on the other side was testing it. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice cracking slightly. No response, then the handle stopped moving. And after a few seconds, the footsteps started again, walking away, fading into the darkness. I checked the hallway immediately. It was empty, but there was something on the floor. A single wet footprint, barefoot, small like that of a child. That was the first night I seriously considered quitting. The next few shifts were worse. The cameras began acting strange, flickering between static and darkness. Sometimes, for a fraction of a second, I would see shapes move in the grainy feed, shadows that didn't belong to anything, and always that faint music. Sometimes close, sometimes distant. Always the same lullaby. I started carrying a small recorder in my pocket just to prove I wasn't imagining it. But every time I played it back, there was nothing, only static. One night, the company asked me to check the basement level, which was rarely entered. They had reports of trespassers, maybe kids sneaking in through the back doors. I hated that basement. It was colder than the rest of the building, and the air smelled stale, like wet paper and rust. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, my flashlight beam caught something strange. A hospital bed sitting in the middle of the corridor, covered with a dirty sheet. It was the only thing there. I walked slowly around it. The wheels left faint drag marks in the dust, like it had been moved recently. Then I saw something written on the wall in chalk. "Do not leave him alone." I backed away instantly. There was something about those words, rushed, uneven, like they had been written by a shaking hand. I decided to head back upstairs. Halfway up the stairwell, I heard a loud metallic clang echo from below, like the bed being shoved hard against the wall. I turned, shining my light down the stairs. Nothing. The hallway was empty again. When I returned to the nurses' station, one of the cameras was out, the one facing the basement door. I switched to another angle, and that was when I saw it. In the corner of the hallway near the elevator, there was a figure standing perfectly still. Small, pale, head tilted slightly, facing the camera. I stared at the screen, barely breathing. Then the camera flickered. When it came back, the figure was gone. By that point, I was done pretending it was my imagination. I called my supervisor and told him something was seriously wrong. He said he would send someone to relieve me in the morning and to just stay put until then. But I could not sit still. I kept watching the monitors, jumping at every flicker of light. Around 4:15 a.m., something changed. The hallway lights on the first floor began turning on, one after another, as if someone was walking down the corridor, triggering them in order. The cameras followed it, each feed flickering to life as the unseen person moved closer to the nurses' station. I stared at the door, listening. Then the music started again, that same faint lullaby, drifting from somewhere just outside the door. I stood up, heart pounding, flashlight trembling in my hand. The lullaby grew louder, closer, until it was right there behind the door. I could hear the tiny metallic clicks of the music box turning, and then a knock, soft, slow, 3 times, knock, knock, knock. I stepped forward, reached for the handle, then froze. Something in me said, do not open it. Whatever was on the other side was waiting. The knocking stopped, but the lullaby kept playing, fading slowly as it moved away down the hall. When morning came, the relief guard showed up and found me sitting in the corner, still staring at the monitors. He asked if I was okay. I just told him I was done. He laughed until he saw the hallway feed. On the monitor, clear as day, was a single set of bare footprints leading down the corridor, perfectly dry, stopping right outside the nurse's station door. There was nothing else, just those small, perfect footprints, and a faint, tinny sound playing from somewhere far down the hall. I never went back. The company said they had trouble finding anyone willing to take the night shift afterward. A few months later, the hospital was sold and finally demolished. They said the crews kept hearing strange noises from the rubble, like music boxes going off in the night. The foreman laughed about it on the local news, but I could see the look in his eyes when he said it. He had heard it too, and that's when I realized some patients never checked out. Thank you for listening to 3 true security guard horror stories. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, make sure to subscribe, give the video a like, and share your own true horror experiences in the comments below. Because sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that really happened.